What is it that gives our lives true meaning, especially when we are faced with extreme adversity? This is the question that has haunted humanity since time immemorial, the question that beckons us to look beyond the veil of suffering and discover the profound purpose of our existence. I am Viktor E. Frankl, a neurologist, psychiatrist, and, perhaps most importantly, a survivor of the Holocaust. My life's work has been dedicated to understanding the human condition, to exploring the depths of despair, and to finding the light of meaning in the darkest of places. The existential vacuum and the search for meaning. Let us begin with the existential vacuum, a term I coined to describe the feelings of emptiness and lack of purpose that are so prevalent in today's society. This void is often filled with a chase for pleasure or power, but these pursuits are ultimately unsatisfying. The question I pose to you now is, have you ever felt that void, that sense of aimlessness that pervades even when all your basic needs are met? In my book, Man's Search for Meaning, I detailed my experiences in the Nazi concentration camps. It was there, amidst unimaginable suffering, that I came to understand that life has potential meaning under any conditions, even the most miserable ones. This realization did not come easily, nor did it come without a cost. One of the stories I often recount is of the time when I was forced to march through the harsh cold, my bare feet bleeding and my body racked with pain. Around me, fellow prisoners fell to the ground, never to rise again. It was in this moment of extreme suffering that I envisioned myself not as I was, but as I could be in the future, giving a lecture on the psychological lessons learned from the concentration camp experience. This vision gave me the strength to continue, to survive. You see, what we expect from life matters less than what life expects from us. We are questioned by life daily and hourly, and our answer must consist not in talk or meditation, but in right action and in right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. Now, think of the times when you have been faced with adversity. How did you respond? Did you find within it an opportunity to grow, or did you let it defeat you? Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how, I often say. This is the essence of logotherapy, the psychological approach I developed, which is founded upon the belief that striving to find meaning in life is the primary, most powerful, motivating, and driving force in humans. Consider the case of a patient I once had, who suffered from a severe case of depression following the death of his wife. He could not overcome the loss, and it was consuming him. When I asked him what would have happened if he had died first and his wife would have been the one to survive him, he said that this would have been terrible for her. She would have suffered greatly. This was his moment of realization. His suffering had spared her from suffering. This gave him a new perspective on his suffering. It now had a purpose. It was his love for his wife that now gave him a why, a purpose to live. In your own life, there will be times when you are confronted with a fate that cannot be changed. What will matter then is changing yourself. We can discover meaning in life in 3 different ways. 1. By creating a work or doing a deed. 2. By experiencing something or encountering someone. And 3. By the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. And so, I invite you to consider the work you create, the relationships you build, and the attitude you adopt in the face of life's inevitable challenges. These are the cornerstones of finding meaning, even when the world seems to crumble around you. The role of love in finding meaning. Love is the highest goal to which we can aspire. The salvation of humans is through love and in love. I have experienced this truth at its deepest level, and it is a lesson that I wish to impart to you now. In the camps, I saw men give away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's own way. I often tell the story of how the thought of my wife's image filled my mind and gave me the courage to endure the hardships of the camp. Love goes very far beyond the physical person. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, his inner self. Whether or not my wife was actually alive at that time, I had no idea. It was of no consequence. I understood that love reaches beyond the grave, beyond the physical world. She was more real to me than the unspeakable horrors that surrounded me. Her love gave me the strength to endure, to find meaning in my suffering, and to keep moving forward. I ask you now, have you ever loved someone so deeply that their presence in your mind could give you the strength to face the greatest adversities? This is the power of love as a source of meaning in our lives. Love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which we can aspire. The more one forgets himself, by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is, and the more he actualizes himself. Self-actualization is possible only as a side effect of self-transcendence. So consider the people you love. How does your love for them shape your actions, your purposes, and your path through adversity? When we can no longer change a situation, just think of an incurable disease such as inoperable cancer. We are challenged to change ourselves. And sometimes, the love we have for others can propel this change, giving rise to a profound sense of purpose that transcends the pain. Let me share with you the story of another patient, a woman who came to me because she was struggling with a profound sense of meaninglessness. Her husband had passed away and she felt a void that nothing seemed to fill. I asked her if her marriage had been a good one, and she confirmed that they had been deeply in love. Then you were fortunate to have had such a loving relationship, one that many people envy, I told her. But now you must find a new meaning in your life. Through our sessions, she began to see that her love for her husband could become a source of strength rather than a source of pain. She started to volunteer, helping others who had also experienced loss. In helping them, she found a way to honor the love she had for her husband, and in doing so, she found new meaning in her life. You too have this capacity for love within you, and it can be a wellspring of meaning no matter the circumstances you face. Suffering and the quest for meaning. It is important to understand that suffering in and of itself is devoid of meaning. It is the attitude we choose to adopt in the face of suffering that gives it meaning. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. This is the paradox of life's adversities. In the concentration camps, we witnessed the worst of humanity, but we also saw the best. There were those who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They were sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. I recall one particular instance when a man came to me in despair. He could not find any meaning in his suffering, in his work, or in his life. I asked him to think about his past, about the times when he had felt fulfilled. After some reflection, he remembered times when he had worked on a project that required all of his skills and intelligence, and he realized that it was not the success of the project that had given him satisfaction, but the process of doing his work well. Through this realization, he was able to find meaning in his suffering at the camp by taking pride in doing his forced labor to the best of his ability, thereby asserting his personal freedom and dignity. Now let me ask you, when confronted with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, can you find within them the seeds of growth? Can you transform personal tragedy into triumph? Suffering can be a teacher if we are willing to learn from it. It can show us what we are made of, what lies beneath the surface of our daily existence. It is not necessary to seek out suffering, but when it comes our way, as it inevitably does, we have the choice to make it meaningful. Let us not forget that suffering is only one aspect of our quest for meaning. True meaning in life is found not only in suffering but also in work, in love, and in courage during difficult times. It is through suffering that we can realize the depth of our strength, and it is through this realization that we can find a profound sense of meaning. The power of hope and the future orientation. Hope, an orientation toward the future, is a fundamental component of a meaningful life. It is hope that allows us to envision a goal, to have a sense of direction, and to anticipate a future where we can actualize our potential and realize our values. In the darkness of the camps, hope was the light that many of us clung to. It was not an irrational or unfounded optimism, but a focus on the possibilities that the future held. The hope that I and many others had was not simply for survival, but for a future in which we could once again embrace the joys and responsibilities of life. Would like to remind you that hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. It is this kind of hope that sustained me and many of my fellow prisoners in the concentration camps. When you have hope, you are able to look beyond the present pain and suffering because you believe that there is still a possibility for good, for growth, and for meaning. Hope allows us to take the long view of our lives, to recognize that our current difficulties are not the end of the story. We may not be able to predict the future, but we can work towards a future that aligns with our deepest values and aspirations. Consider the story of a young woman who came to me in a state of despair. She was unable to see any future for herself after a series of personal failures and disappointments. Through our sessions, we explored what she truly valued and what she wanted her life to represent. Slowly, she began to see that even though her past was filled with pain, her future did not have to be. She started to set small goals for herself, each one a step towards the future she desired. Over time, her sense of hope grew, and although her path was not easy, it was imbued with purpose and direction. Now, I challenge you to look to your own future. What hopes do you hold? How do those hopes guide your actions today? Remember, no matter your circumstances, you have the freedom to choose your attitude towards those circumstances, and in that choice lies your growth and your freedom. In the final analysis, it is our ability to choose that defines us. We are responsible for our own lives, for our own actions, and for the attitude we adopt. We cannot control the conditions that life throws at us, but we can control how we respond to them. The responsibility of choice is perhaps the greatest burden we carry, but it is also our greatest freedom. Every day we make choices that shape our lives and contribute to the meaning we experience. It is not enough to be aware of this responsibility. We must also act upon it. During my time in the concentration camps, I saw men who cursed their fate and others who bore their suffering with dignity. What made the difference was not the severity of their suffering, but their response to it. Those who chose to find meaning in their suffering were able to rise above it, even if only in spirit. I urge you to take responsibility for your choices, to live consciously, and to choose actions that reflect the values you hold dear. This is not a passive existence, but an active one, where every action is a testament to your freedom and your responsibility. My dear interlocutor, the quest for meaning is not an easy journey. It is fraught with challenges and adversity, but it is also the most rewarding journey you can undertake. It is a journey that does not end, for the search for meaning is a lifelong pursuit. In the years since my release from the concentration camps, I have seen the principles of logotherapy help many individuals find purpose and meaning in their lives. It is my hope that my words will inspire you to reflect on your own life, to find your own meaning, and to live with purpose, love, and responsibility. Remember, each person's task is unique, and so too is the meaning of their life. Find your path, embrace it, and let it guide you through the darkest nights and into the light of a life lived with meaning. With hope for your future and faith in humanity, Viktor E. Frankl.